Honestly, guys notice it more when you're out winning games, right? If Cleveland starts off in a bad start, they're not doing well, and all of a sudden Shedeur or Dillon Gabriel are doing well in 7-on-7. They're throwing dimes. In practice drills, the number one defense can't stop them. People take notice of that, and the more that the players see it, they're gonna. Then the comments start happening over the lunch table. They start happening throughout the building, and that's when the pressure really will get severe.
We seen that miserable game by the Cleveland Browns. So they throw Joe Flacco in there, and I like Joe Flacco. He did good, but they gave him the resource of all the first-team guys. Then they throw Dillon Gabriel in there with first teams and second teams. So Dillon always is getting protected. The same thing again, they gave this scrub max protection on every play. Yeah, he completed some passes, but let's talk about his mistakes. He's still inconsistent with his throws, but he at least had max protection.
The Cleveland Browns, a franchise that somehow manages to turn every season into a tragic comedy, where the tragedy is football and the comedy is unintentional. If there were a Hall of Fame for disappointment, the Browns wouldn't just have a wing. They'd own the entire building, complete with season tickets to mediocrity. Their fans don't cheer, they cope. Supporting the Browns is less about loyalty and more about developing the emotional resilience of a Buddhist monk watching his house burn down while smiling.
They throw Shedeur Sanders in there with the lowest cab drivers you couldn't even get on 5th Street. And I'm pissed off, bro, because the play calling was abysmal. Look, even if you don't like Shedeur didn't even get a chance to be trash. Even if you think Shedeur is garbage, he didn't even get a chance to be garbage. That's how awful the offensive line was. Kevin Stefanski still doesn't want to give Shedeur second strings and first strings reps. Why is that? Now, what's more horrible about this game was it was to the point on every single snap.
And let's talk about that owner, Jimmy Haslam. This man could walk into a room full of gold, trip, and somehow turn it into Monopoly money. Every time he commits to the future, Browns fans should just update their therapy appointments. He treats roster decisions like he's spinning a wheel of misfortune. Land on quarterback, land on scandal, land on wasted draft pick. It doesn't matter. The result is always another rebuild.
That this was the guy that they wanted to start. He's seasoned, he's experienced, he still has a big-time arm, even at his age, and they open with the Cincinnati Bengals. They wanted that experienced guy. He was always going to be the guy. They were not going to start Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders in week 1. Kenny Pickett had a hamstring injury. It makes it easy to go with Joe Flacco. And the question isn't and wasn't going to be who's the starter in Cleveland. The question is, who's going to be the backup in Cleveland? Who's going to be the number 2 quarterback when they open the season against these Bengals?
Jason Kelce didn't even need to try hard to humiliate them. The Browns practically send out engraved invitations to every roast. Kelce pointing out their flaws is like roasting a campfire. It's already burning. He just tosses in a marshmallow and makes it delicious. The man is a future Hall of Famer, but against the Browns, he might as well be a stand-up comic with a microphone shaped like a football.
Couple days, 3 days until roster cutdowns. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like you belong here on this team?
Obviously, I think overall as a player, I feel like I put in the work. I feel like everything I do, I try to do it to my best, and that's all I ask for. So I feel like everybody feels like, they should be on the team. And if you ask anybody on the team, would they feel like they belong, in their own eyes. So I feel like I do, but I'm my own player. I think about myself in a high regard.
Let's be honest. The Browns' highlight reel is basically just bloopers set to Circus music. Their quarterbacks change faster than a toddler changes moods, and the only consistent thing about them is losing. They've drafted more franchise quarterbacks than most teams have drafted water boys, and yet the outcome is the same. Confusion, disappointment, and a record that screams, please, just cancel us.
If you're a betting man, who do you think starts for the Browns at quarterback?
Okay, this is the situation. Kenny Pickett, they actually traded for him. Joe Flacco, no one's bringing Joe Flacco in the building thinking Joe Flacco's going to be the starter. If Joe Flacco is your starter,
You got a problem.
you have a huge problem. And if they were saying Shedeur was the starter as the 5th rounder, you got a real problem too, because he passed over all these guys in these reps in the offseason in shorts, in bikini shorts, Speedos and stuff. Like, no, that kind of stuff. So I'm not that surprised. When you put down a third-round pick on a quarterback, you do believe he has a certain skill set.
Remember when the Browns went winless in 2017? Yeah, that wasn't just a season. That was a lifestyle. They didn't even bother pretending to play football. It was like they were testing the limits of how bad a professional sports team could be without actually getting disbanded. And somehow, they still have fans showing up in dog masks, barking in the stands, as if loyalty to Cleveland football isn't already the world's most exhausting endurance sport.
Given what we saw yesterday with Shedeur Sanders, somebody on the Cleveland Browns is 100% getting fired, probably by the end of this year. The person who's probably going to end up getting fired is Kevin Stefanski, because I know that he didn't want Shedeur Sanders on the team. It was Andrew Berry who made that pick. You can't really go against your GM. Bad things happen in this situation. But Shedeur Sanders is not without fault for what we saw yesterday. This is the play that we saw yesterday that has the internet just exploding, where Shedeur Sanders took like a 24-yard sack. Half of the internet is saying that this is all Kevin Stefanski's fault.
Now, of course, they finally stumbled onto Deshaun Watson, and what a genius move that was. If your idea of genius is trading for a quarterback with more lawsuits than touchdown passes. The Browns bet the entire future of the franchise on a guy who can't even guarantee he'll finish a season. That's not just rolling the dice. That's betting your mortgage on a horse that already broke its leg in the warm-up.
Faith of a mustard seed, right? Because this is the greatest resurrection since Jesus the Christ, right? Like at some point, Joe Flacco was thinking about getting into TV, right? Joe Flacco didn't have a job, and then now you not only come back and start for the Cleveland Browns late in the 2023 season, but they came back around to you, and you're now the day one starter for a franchise that just 2 years ago was in the playoffs. Yeah. And so when you look at what this decision to me was about comfort. This was about the devil I know. I know the stability I'm going to get in Joe Flacco. And to me, the Cleveland Browns kept themselves from making what could have been a tough decision to see if I now have my franchise quarterback of the future inside my building.
And let's not forget the owner's reaction whenever someone like Jason Kelce points out how laughable this team is. He loses it. He puffs up like he's defending the honor of some noble institution. Newsflash, Jimmy. You're not running a proud football franchise. You're running an NFL reality show where the prize is who can embarrass themselves the most. Owners of other teams dream of Super Bowls. You dream of not being the punchline on every sports podcast Monday morning.
This is the unofficial depth chart that they released prior to the preseason game, where now Tyler Huntley would be, right behind Flacco. They need to take Flacco and just put him away, get him ready for the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, don't even worry.
Put him in the cryo chamber that Bobby Carpenter sleeps in every night.
Yeah, does not need to play at all. Barely practice because they're having to sign now another quarterback. And keep in mind, they already have Watson, who's on the...
Cleveland's front office decisions are the stuff of legends, if the legend is about failure. They had Baker Mayfield, the one quarterback who actually got them into the playoffs for the first time since the invention of Wi-Fi, and what did they do? Shipped him off like he was yesterday's leftover casserole. That's peak Browns. Finally find a bit of stability, and then toss it out the window for drama and headlines.
I don't know what it is about the Cleveland team on why we can't get over this fact that we can't get our franchise quarterback. I mean, you see the jerseys. I'm tired of seeing the jerseys. I'm tired of the names just going and going and going. I literally thought Brandon Weeden was going to be our guy at one point. And then I'll never forget I think it was a preseason game, a flag goes over his head and he's trying to get out of the flag.
You knew it was
while
over.
They're doing the national anthem. And I'm like, oh my God,
then.
This is my starting quarterback?
Yeah.
And let's talk about their fan base for a second. These poor souls live in a cycle of eternal optimism followed by crushing disappointment. Every draft is the one. Every new coach is the savior. Every season starts with hope and ends with memes. Browns fans could write dissertations on disappointment, complete with charts, graphs, and tear-stained essays about what it feels like to live in football purgatory. Meanwhile, Jason Kelce gets to walk in, crack a few jokes, and the whole operation falls apart like a folding chair at a family barbecue. That's the thing. The Browns don't even need an enemy. They are their own worst rival. No team has ever been so committed to sabotaging itself in broad daylight. If self-destruction were an Olympic sport, Cleveland would be the Michael Phelps of failure.
I also can't blame anybody who says, I don't necessarily trust this coaching staff to develop a quarterback or to evaluate the quarterback position. They have made some really oddball decisions at this position over the last several years, and I don't blame anybody for questioning, do these guys actually know what they're doing?
I don't think that's unfair at all. The thing that I would say is that they're desperate. They're very desperate. Like the entire organization is desperate. And if you really think they're going back to the coaches' offices and all getting around the table after sessions and being like, guys, Shedeur is unbelievable, but I really think we should try to prove that Dylan is better than him because we drafted him 2 rounds before.
And here's the cruelest irony. The city of Cleveland actually deserves better. These fans are diehards. They sit in blizzards. They scream their lungs out. They wear those absurd dog masks with pride. And what do they get in return? A front office run like a bad episode of The Office, and a team that specializes in turning touchdowns into turnovers. If loyalty could win championships, the Browns would have more trophies than the Patriots. Instead, they have paper bags over their heads and season tickets to sadness.
I gotta say this real quick. You were right, and I was wrong. We ain't never seen nothing like shit.
I told you. Let's go.
Because when you said that early on, I'm like, what are you talking about? They carried the games in Oklahoma, but that was just Oklahoma. That was for Baker. It was like the Oklahoma fan base. They carried the games in Norman, Browns games in Norman. I'm like, that was just as big.
Are you telling me that this is the biggest circus the Browns have ever been a part of?
Yes.
Jay, you not.
Yes.
Wait,
because I remember, like, I'm not draft.
I told you.
I remember the Deshaun Watson circus.
Jason Kelce didn't humiliate the Browns. The Browns humiliate themselves daily. He just pointed it out with the charm and delivery of someone who's actually won things in his career. Cleveland's owner may lose his mind every time someone laughs at his team, but here's the reality. If you don't want people laughing, stop acting like the circus. Until then, the Browns aren't an NFL franchise. They're a live-action blooper reel with season tickets.
Shedeur Sanders is expected to start for the Cleveland Browns.
How about that?
Friday night in their preseason opener.
I'd be excited, obviously, if I'm a Browns fan. Like the fact that you get to see him, like that's fun. Like if you're a fan of that team, that's fun that you get to see this guy that is this huge polarizing figure, especially coming out of this NFL draft. I wonder if it's kind of a disservice to him, though.
How?
Because he's been the 4th string quarterback. Like, and you're just kind of throwing him in there. I don't know.
If I'm the 4th string quarterback and I get named the starter, I want it. How do you move up the depth chart?
At the end of the day, the Browns are proof that hope is both beautiful and stupid. Fans will keep hoping, the team will keep fumbling, and Jason Kelce, or anyone with a working sense of humor, will keep roasting them. Because as long as the Browns exist in their current form, comedy writes itself, and the punchline never changes. Cleveland loses.